This is the Puck Poolies podcast with Matt Larkin and Stephen Ellis.
Hello, everybody. It's Matt Larkin here with Stephen Ellis. Welcome back to Puck Poolies, presented by our new sponsor, PROLINE Plus. This is episode 2. And Stephen, we can kind of get in the groove of things now if people, we assume, listened to episode 1. So let's just dive into it and establish what's going to be our routine. Tell me how your fantasy team's doing.
Well, my team, we won again, so I believe I'm now 8-1-0. So I've been kind of just on a roll, and I feel like I probably could have almost had a perfect record with how good my team's playing, had it not been for just injuries that week when I lost. Because entering this week, the projection was I was going to win by 200 points, and that's pretty insane. So I think I won by almost double last week, and it helped that Tage Thompson went kind of on a roll like he did. But yeah, I can't say it. I could say it worked out pretty well for me.
Okay, that's good. I'm kind of grinding along. I'm hanging on the playoff periphery, but I'm in an easy division where just 500 could jump me from like 11th place to 4th place. And I'm in pretty good shape, but it's the Devils goaltending. I've been riding and dying with the Devils goaltending. So at the beginning of the year, I was trying to trade them. I thought I have to upgrade that position. Then all of a sudden, Vitek Vanacek and Akira Schmidt are playing really well. Now they're coming back to earth. So I'm like, oh no, is the party over? I know you wrote earlier this week, I think it was you, Stephen, that his underlying numbers weren't that great. So I'm like, I hope this is still going to be a thing. Otherwise, maybe I'm going to start sinking again, but we'll see what happens. Okay, that's enough about our teams. Let's jump into how we can help people with their teams. Stephen, what do you got?
All right, well, it's time to talk about the Shallow League pickup of the week with one of my favorite young defensemen in the entire NHL.
Okay, yeah, we're going to start with Sean Durzi of the Los Angeles Kings. When I checked as of Monday night, he was 46% available. And he, to me, was someone I had my eye on going into this season because he had some nice category juice late in the year. Then all of a sudden, early this season, he's a healthy scratch. And it's like, oh my God, no, this was supposed to be one of the big sleepers I was trying to sell people on. I've led them astray. But I think it was just Todd McClellan trying to send a message. He's found his groove, 10 points in his last 9 games, which is great for a defenseman. 6 of those coming on the power play as well. And I just like the general statistical buffet, as I love to say. He gives you help in many different categories, well above average, especially in blocks, not bad in hits, and he's bringing the offense PP1.
Yeah, this is a guy that last year really took advantage of Drew Doughty being out and getting out there and getting more ice time. And someone where I think it was just kind of a matter of time until he finally got his opportunity. You know, he was, when he was drafted, he was a big kind of high riser guy, and he's been pretty important for the LA Kings ever since making it to the NHL. Next part is going to be the medium league pickup of a player that you and I are definitely very familiar with.
That's right. Sean Durzi was an ex-Maple Leafs prospect defenseman, and now this is a current rising prospect of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Rasmus Sandin, available in 69% of leagues. So we know the Morgan Rielly injury has been a blessing for Sandin. When it first happened, I assumed it was going to be Mark Giordano getting more of the opportunity, especially on that first power play unit. Right now it's Sandin, and that's a plum spot to be in, out there with the guys like Marner and Matthews, Tavares, and so on. And it's been very exciting to watch the growth in his last 11 games. He's got 7 points. He's plus 11, 30 hits, 18 blocks. So you're getting, again, nice statistical balance there. And the big question is this a long-term pickup? I'm not sure. I just go get him for now, and then you can sort it out later. Because Morgan Rielly, we know the knee injury is not a season ender. He will be back, and he will get that job back. He's too important as a leader on this team. He'll be back on the top power play. So maybe Sandin is a sell high. You find the Leaf fan in your league, you let him help you for another couple weeks. But either way, it's an asset you can use. So definitely pick him up.
That's a pair of defensemen. Let's talk about a forward in Owen Tippett, a guy that I got to watch a lot when I was covering the Mississauga Steelheads. What do people need to know about him?
Yeah, and I always say this, if you've been following my fantasy advice for years, it's just when a player scores at every level, it's always a good sign. It's just when someone's a scorer their whole life. You could say that about Cole Caulfield, and Matt Boldy is an example I always use. And that applies to Owen Tippett as well. Going back to Major Junior, he was a goal scorer. He came to the AHL, and he transitioned fairly well. He found his goal scoring touch there. Of course, he's part of the Claude Giroux trade last year, and we're seeing him get an increased opportunity. 16, 17 per game is his time on ice. That's a career high. He's got 8 goals in 24 games. So even what he's doing right now, if you extrapolate that pace over 82 games, that's 27 goals, 44 points, 188 shots, 164 hits. So what he's giving you is like a poor man's Joel Eriksson-Ek for fantasy purposes, or a poor man's Sam Bennett. Yet Owen Tippett's available in 97% of leagues, and he just doesn't have that much competition for playing time on a really bad Flyers team. So I think he can maintain this level of production, and I think it could be quite a helpful piece in a deep league.
I said it about Eli Tolvanen in an article on that I wrote recently, talking about how, like, kind of to your point, goal scorers they don't kind of forget how to score, and sometimes if you're not scoring, you're playing more of a defensive role, you're deep in the lineup, you do lose all those opportunities to score, and you're not playing the game you're used to. But you just give those guys the opportunities, and that's what we're seeing with Owen Tippett right now. And the WTF pickup of the week is someone that is I checked is not picked in my pool, Jeff Skinner.
Yeah, I even wrote down, what are we doing here? It's just, I don't know if there's just a stink on Jeff Skinner because obviously he has a long history of burning people in fantasy.
Mhm.
Because if you look at his pattern, okay, this is his full season goal total trend for his career: 31, 20, 13, 33, 18, 28, 37, 24, 40, 14, 7, 33. He's just all over the map. And I think people are just like, you know what? I'm done with you, Jeff Skinner. But I say, just put your emotion aside. He's available in 25% of leagues. He's playing when he's not suspended, which he is right now, with Tage Thompson and Alex Tuck, and that chemistry was forged last season. So I think he's a safe bet to most of the time be on that line. And Jeff Skinner's on pace for almost 100 points. It's crazy. I wonder, too, if it's just because people think he's old, but because he's been around for so long, he's played 880 games, but he's only 30 because he debuted at 18. So this could be a Patrick Marleau kind of career where Jeff Skinner eventually challenges for the all-time games record. I don't know, but he's not as old as people think he is, and he's on a 100-point pace. Just pick him up. What are you doing, people? Come on.
I like it. Yeah, no, I'm still just like, I've kind of in the mindset of, yeah, he's playing well right now, but he's so up and down. But right now, it's clearly up. So I know I agree there. And the tip of the week: never declare anyone untouchable. And I've learned that myself in my league. But why do you say that?
Yeah, this is one that grinds my gears, Stephen. And so this is a message to people from my league that are hearing this, because I hate when people do this. No, Connor McDavid, untouchable. No, don't even bother making an offer. That's my voice of the annoying generic GM, whoever that is. It's just such closed-minded thinking, and it hurts you in many ways. You turn off the other GM by just saying, the best player I have, you can never have. So it makes you not a very exciting GM to negotiate with, and it puts you on the path to eventually your rivals saying, you know what, I give up. I'm not even trying to trade with this person. They never want to give up their good players. And it just closes the door. You never know what type of offer you might get. Someone might surprise you. And I'm going to give you an example. Last year, I was in a keeper league. It was the trade deadline of our keeper league. And I had Mikko Rantanen and Alexander Barkov as two of my best keepers. I said, I don't think I'm going to trade them. Like, I don't think there's any point of trying, but I didn't say untouchable. And someone came flying in with this crazy offer. It was like Patrice Bergeron, Elias Pettersson, Mackenzie Weegar, Brad Marchand, UC Saros. And I was like, oh, whoa, accept. And I loaded up with a veteran team, but because I got so many pieces. So that was a good example of, I thought my best players were untouchable, but you just got to keep that mind open. Someone may surprise you, and you don't want to be labeled an annoying person to trade with, because that's a hard reputation to shake, Stephen.
Yeah, 100%. And I usually like to take advantage. It's a slightly different thing, but I like to take advantage of trade rumors. And, I play with people who aren't like following all the latest news every single day. So there's that. But I like to take advantage of Claude Giroux last year, or when he was available for trade. It's like, okay, here, like, a lot of people are talking about him. A lot of teams might want him. Let's try to dangle him. And I was able to actually trade him for a much higher than return than I probably should have, because people were kind of starting to build into the hype. And there were some guys where, who was it? JT Miller was another guy where I was kind of dangling him. And given he was almost an MVP caliber player, was not a guy I wanted to move at the time. But I was, at the end of the year, I'm like, okay, I should probably move him, just take advantage of kind of all the hype. And I stole it. And I end up getting a good return. I did get JT Miller again in the offseason, only for me to wish I could cut him, but he's on the Yahoo don't cut list.
Exactly. That's right.
I
And
hate
it's
that.
funny. It's funny, Stephen. I'm talking about advice that I want to give to people that are in my own league. And it's kind of the perfect transition to our special guest today, because it is someone who is in my league and is a rival of mine. And it's time to bring that person on. Okay, everyone, you probably know him as an extremely famous singer, a Grammy Award winner, the king of Christmas, if you will. I know him as those things as well, but also a friend. And sorry, I just got to throw open my mouth a little bit. The first place team in my fantasy hockey league Welcome to Puck Poolies, Michael Buble. Michael, how you doing, my friend?
And nice to see you, Stephen. You know what's weird? Is this the first time is this Larkin out of league? I can't. Or did I have the best record in the history of the league one year? Oh yes, I did.
Yes, that it's up for debate, and I'm saving that. I'm saving an ambush for you later. But we're gonna warm up. I'm gonna go easy on you to start this episode. And one thing that we bonded over initially was the love of fantasy sports. And I want you to tell our listeners what got you into hockey pools. What made you fall in love? Because you're a very competitive guy, as I know.
Well, I think my ADHD was helpful. Those are people that have people call that a learning disability. I don't think it's a learning. The opposite. I think it's actually the ability to focus on things that you are and of course in things I'm not interested in. It makes me a mess, but I love the numbers, and I love trying to do the Sudoku in my how to make it work, because it's funny when I started playing. It's the names were attractive. You wanted to have whoever these the big stars were, and you realize quickly that isn't that's not how you win. You know what I mean? You win the perfect team depending on the leagues you play in. They give you the categories or stats, and so fun. For me, it's interesting, and it just keeps me interested. And more than that, now I've become from years of being in leagues with guys that I'd never met before, and now we're friends, we're buddies, and that's the camaraderie is cool. Like, we're on group chats. I'm on like 3 or 4 group chats. I mean, we're just kicking the hell out of each other the whole time, but it's, you know what I mean? It's all in good fun.
So first off, love the background. Love all the Spider-Man and everything in the background. That's fantastic. Have you seen the new Into the Spider-Verse trailer?
That's, by the way, that movie, the first one, is my favorite superhero movie of all time. And I have seen the trailer. I've watched that so many times. It's funny. My kid Eli, my second, he's like, no, I'm Miles Morales. So I'm like, okay, sorry, Miles Morales.
That's awesome. So you're a big Canucks fan. You've definitely you know some of the players personally. Does that kind of make it awkward if you might have to trade players away? That if you have any of those guys on your team?
Those guys have known that it's a business their whole life. You know what I mean? They understand that part of it, and change is never easy. But I think the whole. It's funny. I was yesterday. My Vancouver Giants. We had a press conference to introduce the Sedin brothers. I was splitting them up for the first time. One was coach of the WHL All Stars, and the other was coaching the other. And you know what? I think the only thing I can do in my relationship to try to help guys keep a clear mind and make sure that there's a good environment.
This is something I've always wanted to ask you, Mike, because you're in our league one of the most active GMs. Like, if you look at the the most moves made in the league, trades, you're in it. But you're also a guy that you perform at night. You have concerts. So I'm always wondering, like, do you check your phone between songs? Do you have a moment where you accept a trade in the middle of a show?
Yes.
How do you manage? Because the games are played at night.
Dude, I will come off for my encore, right, at the end of the show, and do the first is to give me Purell, and they'll put Purell, and I'll wipe my hands, is to give me the phone, and boom, I check the scores. I'm in another dude. Are you serious? Why don't you say hi to them then? At least you're gonna come in and
hi.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
Why
Are you talking about soccer?
No, I'm not. Talking about games where babies don't pretend to get hurt every.
Oh. Oh, it looks like we lost Mike. Do you still have him, Steven?
No,
You
no,
got him.
I'm here. I'm here. Let me just, you know what? Someone just tried to call me and I'm on my phone. So I just declined their call. Declined.
Oh, that's awesome. And for anybody listening or watching, that was Luisanda Lapalato, Michael's wife, the actress who just came in. She's decked out in her Argentina gear because we're recording this just before that game is going to start. Okay, Steven, you're up. Next question, my friend.
Well, 1 second. I need to say this because people that don't know. So when you were the editor at the Hockey News, you actually gave me a gift where you sent me the Hockey News with me on the cover. And one of the things you wrote on the cover was, is Luisana Lopilato the actual manager of Bublé's hockey team, fantasy hockey team?
Forgot about that.
That's awesome. All right, so you've seen what Ryan Reynolds is trying to do there, trying to buy the Ottawa Senators. Is this something where you might want to get involved in some way of a hockey team at some point in the NHL? It is.
You know what, man? It's always been an itch that I've wanted to scratch. But to be fair, owning the Vancouver Giants in the WHL has scratched that itch in a big way for me. It's a big question because I have no intent in wanting to be a mascot for a team. So if the situation works itself out where I could possibly go in on the ownership side, it would be because I think I can actually bring value to the franchise. And I really think I can. I mean, and I'm not even so much in a sense of in hockey or analytics or logistics of bringing players or trading players. That's not what it's about. I just think that as an entertainer, what I do is very similar to what any athlete does. And so much of it is a game of confidence. So much of what I do is set up with a positive environment and making sure that you can grow as a human being. And I know that with the Giants, I watch this every single day. I watch this with my ownership team and management team, and I see what a really healthy environment they've built for these guys. And even if the path isn't for these guys to be with our team for the long haul, or the path isn't even to be an NHL or a hockey player, when they leave, they always say that the experience was amazing and that they grew as human beings, that there were lessons of morals or ethics, and that they're confident men, and not just on the ice, because 90% of the game isn't on the ice. It just isn't. It's on buses. And it's interesting because as good as these managers are in hockey, it's really hard. It's a hard line to straddle to really truly understand what's happening in a room. And it's easy to look at the players like a fantasy hockey manager, where you say, well, this guy's great at faceoffs, and this guy's an edgy, second line forward, and this is a good stay-at-home defenseman. It's nice to set him up because on paper, this guy is a really, smooth skating D-man that can get the puck out. But that's not what wins championships. What wins championships is not only finding leaders, not just the leaders on the ice, but the leaders of men off the ice, and the leaders that help to lift each other up. And you need more than one or two. You need to have 5 or 6 or 7 guys that can lift each other up in different ways on and off the ice. And I always felt like I could be a part of helping to find that and helping to foster that and helping to make sure that not only in whatever team I'm involved with, that you have that that sort of nucleus and that system, but that when people find out about that environment outside of your team, that they want to come. And this is how it works. You know what I mean? And speaking of Ryan Reynolds, I think it's a no-brainer to have somebody like Ryan Reynolds to come in to, say, the Ottawa Senators, because that's exactly what Ryan does. You know what I mean? Ryan's a great guy, a beautiful human being. And again, I think he's closer to the average athlete than you'll ever know. I mean, I think he gets it. He gets the amount of pressure that comes from the ownership group, from your teammates, from your fans, and mostly on yourself, because I can tell you as an entertainer, I know that that's what he feels. That's what I feel. And so when you talk to these guys, you know, you can really break it down to a cellular level and sort of help guys to understand that things are going to be okay. Hey, they might not be great, but hey, let's just take it a day at a time, work on it, and get your confidence up. And then you see their confidence start to grow. And then it's once that happens, you watch these players just like I'm watching Petey this year, like Elias Pettersson to the Canucks. Dude, this guy, every time he touches the puck, every single time he steps over the bench, I know that he's thinking, oh, I can score here. You know what I mean? I got this. They can't stop me. And it's amazing when you see that happen.
Yeah, very well said, Mike. And it's spoken like a true team evangelist. So if anybody's watching or listening out there thinking about the Ryan Reynolds potential, maybe down the road, I think we have another possible celeb minority owner in the mix. We'll see.
Oh, I would love that. The only team we're not going to is the Boston Bruins.
Of course, yeah. Scars 2011 do not heal.
Yeah, my kid the other day we were looking to make a list for Santa Claus. So we were looking at all these jerseys and stuff. And he goes the first thing, he goes right to the Boston jersey. And he goes, Poppy, that's a really wow, I like that one. I want that one. I was like, over my dead body, dude. We'll be canceled, dude. That's not happening.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, well, Mike, before we let you go, I'm gonna give you a Christmas gift, my friend. I'm going to let you defend your honor because there is a controversy that has been going on for years in our pool. Okay. So to set the stage,
there's no controversy.
According to some. Okay. Here's
just according to Yahoo. If I look at the Yahoo site, it just says champion Michael Buble.
No way. It's garbage. Absolute garbage. Okay.
Yeah. Let's not believe our eyes. Let's just believe what you and your dad say. That's better.
Okay. I'm going to start with this, Stephen. Do you consider the 1994 Montreal Expos the World Series champion? Because, you know, they were in first place when the season ended, even though there was no playoffs. Are they the World Series champion? Are they engraved on a trophy?
Nope.
No, that's right.
Nope.
Yeah.
Well, can I ask you something? Can I ask you something, Steve? What if that year they had playoffs and they had started the playoffs?
That'd be
and then it was ended and they were ahead in the playoffs.
Well, okay, well, that's tough. If it's in the World Series specifically, sure. Sure.
No way. Okay, so what I'm getting at, if you can tell, is that Mr. Buble has tried to claim himself a legacy champion of the 2020 season because he was in first place on March 12th when the season shut down, and that was the end of the fantasy season. There were no playoffs. We're in a head-to-head league. You have to win a quarterfinal, semifinal, final. Sometimes it's a 2-week final.
Sorry, Matt, I'm against you here.
You're against me.
Yeah, I'm against you on that one, Matt. Sorry.
Okay, but let's just do this because this is never gonna, it's 50% of our league is like, yeah, he won it. 50% is like, no way. And you know what the truth is? The truth is I respect both because I don't think, listen, I could go both ways. You know what I mean? But the thing that I wanted to talk about was that I broke, how old is that league?
Oh, now it started in 2001. So it's it's 22 years old.
I broke the league, and I broke it because I was such a dickhead of a manager that I sold my team. It's a keeper league. I sold off my team. I traded Connor McDavid. I traded Kucherov. I sold my team so badly that I ended up that year accruing so many first-round picks that of course it wasn't fair. No one could touch me. I can't remember what my record was, but it broke the record for the record. No one, but I screwed up the league so badly.
Yeah.
But the next year they were like, so here are the rule changes. No more Buble rebuilds. No more getting rid of anymore. You can't trade any more than 2 picks.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be a first and a third or a second and a fourth, but it can't be a first and a second. Like, I love that I walked into your league and I'm such a dickhead that I actually.
It's true. This is true.
We
started the whole league over. We had to start the whole league over. We blew it up.
Yes.
It was like the Avengers.
Yes. And so my football league, I did the same thing, dude. I realized like the first year or second year in its existence, I was like, oh, my team is good, but it's not good enough to win. And I wanted that trophy. And so, dude, I started to look at 3 years. I was making trades for 3 and 4 years. So I'll give you Alvin Kamara or Dalvin Cook, and I want blank, I want your first pick. And they go, I'm not giving you my first pick next year. I go, give me your first pick in 2024. And they go, 2024. Anyway, long story short, this year, I think I'm about to take home the championship, and I've just made it. I think I'm 14-1, and I've pissed everyone off. I'm going to break that league too.
Yeah, that's the moral of the story for this episode 2 of Puck Poolies, which is don't let Michael Bublé infiltrate your fantasy league. He will rot it like a virus. Just like he's doing. He's in first place in our league right now, which is painful. But hey,
by
maybe
the
he's
way, Maddie, with a shit team, with a terrible team. I don't have it's not a great team.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm not buying it. I think what you need is for the league to suddenly pause with no playoffs again, so you can declare yourself a fake champion.
Hey, Matt, everyone played by the same rules that year. Sorry.
No, I know, but listen. It's nice to be commissioner. That's all I can say.
Yeah, that's a dig because my dad's the commissioner. So some people claim that I get what daddy.
Let me tell you. This is the greatest league. It is all the managers are. That's the best part about a league where every manager is completely heavily involved. Everybody's talking garbage about each other. You love each other as friends. You go drinking and hang out. But the truth is, when it's head to head that week, you want that other guy dead. It's like this is what it's about, man. It's so much fun. Like I thirst for that. Like forget about. I don't want an asterisk. I want that damn. I want that trophy so bad. I can taste it.
Well, as we say goodbye to you today, Mike, I just want to announce the title of your next album, everybody. It's actually called Asterisk. That's what it's going to be called. Okay. So thanks, Mike, for coming on. We'll continue competing,
Thanks,
of course. It's a pleasure, and good luck with your not very good team going forward. And enjoy. Again, we're recording just as the Argentina game starts. Enjoy that game, my friend.
Hey, buddy, it's my pleasure. And you know what, guys? The fact that I actually go to you, Matt, to like read your stuff, because you're a great writer, and I go to your stuff because I want to know, like, what is he thinking, and who do I pick up, and da-da. What are you right now? What number are you in the league?
I'm in 11th place. This is really backfiring. I'm getting roasted.
No, you're not getting roasted. But listen, I'm coming up with my own blog if people are interested. Bublé's Takes. So you can come and see. I have starting goaltenders listed, and I'm just messing with you. I'm so. You know, it's so great, dude. I'm so happy you're doing this because I love these like great hockey podcasts, and anytime, man. If you want me to be regular, I'm happy to come on and talk garbage, and I can't wait to see these. I can't wait to. When does this come out? Today?
It's going to come out later today. We're recording on Tuesday. It'll be out later today. So everybody check it out. Episode 2.
All right.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks for coming.
No, my pleasure, guys.
Okay. Thank you to Mr. Buble. That was fun. We're going to continue on now, Stephen, with one of our new weekly segments, which is the prospect update. So who do you have your eye on right now as a potential long-term call-up to a fantasy team?
So one player to watch here is Tyson Foerster on the Philadelphia Flyers. He's playing with Lehigh Valley right now, and he's been fantastic. He's been close to a point per game for a team that could use all the scoring help it can get. And he was very good at the World Juniors, and this is a guy who missed a lot of hockey last year. And when he got drafted, I pinned him as a guy that was probably one of the more confident shooters, and he was a high volume guy. He was shooting kind of from anywhere, and that has seemed to work out for him in his pro career. And I am a little concerned about his all-around play, but that doesn't really matter in fantasy. It doesn't matter if he scores. Yes, he puts up goals, and we talked a little bit about Owen Tippett. I feel like they have very similar shots. It's kind of how they get to those shots that really matter, and I think Foerster can get very physical in front of the net. He likes to get rebounds. He wants the puck near him at all times, and that is typically a pretty good thing for a fantasy team. So I'd say keep an eye out for Tyson Foerster.
For sure. And sometimes it's like the source of cheap production is just players that are on really bad teams because they just get opportunities and get fast tracked into, a top 6. You make the team and you're right on the second line right away or on the second power play or something like that. So that's where there can be sort of a discount you get because the team's bad, plus minus might be bad, but the opportunity is often going to be good. So I like the way you're thinking, Stephen. Now we're going to move on to a new segment. It's Best Bets presented by PROLINE Plus, and we're going to have a little word from our sponsor first. PROLINE, it's not just another sports book. It is the only sportsbook that gives 100% of the profits back to Ontario. It has been your local trusted sportsbook for over 30 years, now offering Ontario sports fans more ways to play in-store, online, or take the game on the go with PROLINE app. With your favorite sports and events right at your fingertips, download the PROLINE app and bet in-app with PROLINE Plus today, or head over to prolineplus.ca to learn more. Okay, Steven, so we're going to dive in. We're going to use that PROLINE Plus app to find our best bets for today. And the game that I'm looking at is the Los Angeles Kings and the Buffalo Sabres. I'm really all over the over in that one. The last I looked at it, it was at plus 183, over 6.5 goals. And the Kings, the goaltending has just been terrible this season. If you see on Daily Faceoff, our home website, there's Mike McKenna's goalie tandem rankings. The Kings are near the bottom. Cal Peterson, of course, sent down. Jonathan Quick has not been very good either. They've had 7 straight games in which at least one team scored 4 or more goals. Meanwhile, the Sabres have gone over 6.5 in 6 of their past 7 games. They're just playing fire wagon hockey with Tage Thompson going crazy. So I'm really liking the over in that game, especially with the Kings making the cross-country trip to Buffalo. That's a tough road trip as well.
All right, Matt, we're going to take some questions now. This is one of my favorite parts because we get everyone else involved in the show. So we are going to start with a question from Sebastian Harrison, who asked, what do I do with Binnington? I also got Skinner and Swayman. Binnington is the only true starter during the full season, 16-team league, so the wire pickup selection is rather slim. Do I keep him and cross fingers for a good streak, seek a trade, or just drop him?
Yeah, that's a tough conundrum to be in. I do think you have to hold him just because, especially if your league counts volume stats, Skinner and Swayman, they're just not getting enough volume to be reliable as your main goaltender. And Binnington, we saw, got his 100, how many 100th career win he just got, or whatever it was. He is relatively unchallenged for his gig. Going into last night, he was second in the league in starts. And the problem is he hasn't been that good, of course, right? The save percentage has been living mainly under 900 of late, especially in the last few weeks. And because of that, I'm not saying you drop Jordan Binnington, but I do wonder if you try to explore a trade because there's still a name brand there and the volume is reliable and he's a Stanley Cup winner. So I think what I would do if I had Jordan Binnington was seek a trade for another sort of marquee big name goalie who's also struggling. So try and trade him for Marc-Andre Fleury. Or maybe the window's passed on UC Saros. Saros is starting to improve. But Fleury, for example, I like the Wild better than the Blues as a team defensively. I think Fleury's a better bet to figure it out than Binnington. So don't drop Binnington. Maybe you can find a trade for another buy low goaltender.
All right, we're going to stay easy enough to say. We're going to stick with goaltending here. We're going to talk from a question from Leafs guy. Kemper, Skinner, and Hellebuck are my goalies. Picked up Skinner when Kemper went down. When he returns, what's the best move to make? He's torn on this one.
Well, Leafs guy, I think you're in a pretty sweet spot. This is a good problem to have because obviously Connor Hellebuck is awesome. Darcy Kemper, when healthy, has been really solid for Washington this year too. And Stuart Skinner has been great for the Oilers too. So I think you're in a good spot no matter what. And I do think you're probably, just based on volume, you're going to keep Connor Hellebuck and Darcy Kemper. But what's cool is that I don't think this is a situation where you have to consider dropping anybody because all 3 of these goalies have trade value. So I think if you're confident that Skinner wins the gig outright, you could trade somebody Kemper, or you could take Skinner and maybe go to the Jack Campbell owner in your league and say, haha, I got Skinner. And maybe that owner is going to be desperate to solidify the Edmonton goaltending. So I think no matter what happens, don't think of it as oh my God, I'm in a conundrum. I have to drop a good goalie. Think of it as you're in a position of power. Maybe you even advertise to your fellow league mates, hey, I got a goalie for sale. So who wants a good one before I have to make a move?
Next question comes from Eamon Devlin. I'd love to hear more about the Vampire League you mentioned last year.
Okay, yes. So we may have some new, maybe many new listeners to Puck Poolies who haven't heard the tale of the Vampire League. So that's why Eamon, who's been a listener on previous podcasts in the multiverse, he really enjoyed the breakdown of this league. So I'll give you an example of it. It applies to football. I'm very curious if it would work for hockey. Okay, so here's how it works. In the Vampire League, everyone drafts except for whoever the appointed vampire is. For season 1, you do a draw. So everybody drafts normally, you draft a very deep bench to account for injuries because once you draft, you are not allowed to touch the waiver wire or change your roster all year. Meanwhile, the Vampire doesn't get to draft at all. You just auto rank all the worst players in the league that aren't even in the NHL. So the Vampire's roster will be outfitted with the worst players. Then the season starts. The Vampire is the only manager in the league that has free run of the waiver wire. The Vampire can pick up whoever they want and do their best to field the team, whatever the good pickups are. That's how a Vampire has to build their team. And when you play the Vampire, this has to be a head-to-head league, by the way. If you lose to the Vampire gets to steal any player from your starting lineup. So basically, if the Vampire keeps winning, the Vampire's evil grows. The Vampire's power grows as it keeps stealing your players and eating them and getting more and more powerful. So it happened to us a couple times where the Vampire's evil grew and was too powerful. Eventually, it had the best team in the league, and that was it. No one could stop the Vampire. And you have debates over how to strategize this when it's your turn to play the Vampire. Do you start your best possible team, keep the Vampire weak at the beginning of the season, or do you not want to risk your own players? And do you take a dive and put your backups in the lineup and let the Vampire steal a backup? It leads to some big debates among the other managers, but it's really fun. And because of the fact that other than the Vampire, you can't really change your team, it's a great backup league. It's not good for your main league, but it requires minimal roster management. You don't have to use the waiver wire until the playoffs. Once you're in the playoffs, every team gets to use it. But that's how Vampire works. It's really fun. I use it as sort of a backup fantasy football league, not my main league, but it's great. And I'm curious. I would love to hear if somebody tried it for hockey and if it has the same effect.
I've never heard of this concept before. Like I know you've mentioned it, but I don't know I've ever heard of anyone trying it.
It's really fun. You should be the guinea pig, Steven. You should do it because you're already playing a zany, wacky 4-team league. You should start up a Vampire league with the same people and just tell us how it goes.
Well, with the team I played against last week, they forgot to just dress Sidney Crosby in any game and kept putting McKinnon in when he wasn't playing. So I don't know how that will work out. Next question comes from Flynn. How do you handle a GM just starts missing, that doesn't do anything, is inactive at all during a season?
Yeah, it's tough especially if you're in a league that's a really competitive league where people really care. It can really suck if there's somebody who just disappears. So we've had lots of experience in my leagues doing this. We kind of evaluate it in phases. The first phase is you just ask around. Every GM and every pool usually has one or two people that they're closest to, like maybe it's their best friend or whatever. So you check in with those people if they know what's wrong. Maybe it turns out, that manager had a death in the family. That's why, or they're in the hospital, whatever it is. That's why they haven't responded to offers. Sometimes that's all it is, right? So you can find out on a personal level. And if nobody knows, then the next thing we would do is you sort of put that GM on probation and you send a message, FYI, we don't know where you are. And, we want competitive GMs in this league. So this has been a warning. Please manage your roster, put your active players in the lineup. Otherwise we'll have to make a decision on what to do with your future. If that doesn't happen and the GM is just gone, doesn't come back, use the commissioner's tools. The commissioner can take over and manage the roster. You can find a new GM. It's easy to transfer ownership in terms of logins for Yahoo, for example. They let you do that. And I think the worst case scenario when this happens is the GM does respond, but then they just kind of do the bare minimum and they keep disappearing again and again. And they're limping along, like not really engaged, but just engaged enough. And when that happens, usually in the off season, we do kind of a vote and say, okay, is this person doing enough? Or do we have another GM wanting to join the league that would be better? And then we put it to a vote, sort of just, okay, is this person good enough for the league? And it's especially if you're in a league that with a lot of people, and that's not just a standard public league. And that's what makes it fun, right? It's not your ordinary league. So I think it's okay to have a higher standard for the type of GM that you want. So that's a long answer, but only because I've actually encountered this situation many times.
No, that makes sense. Question from Connor Stone. I have Kaapo Kakko in my keeper league, but at this point, I have no hope for him long term. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's frustrating because the potential was so high when he was drafted right after Jack Hughes in 2019. I wrote a story at the time I was with the Hockey News, so I got to know Kaapo and many of his former coaches as I worked through this story. And I remember one of his coaches telling me he was the best player they've ever seen in Finland at that age, better than Barkov, better than Granlund. And they were so certain he was going to be a dominant NHL player, that his skill set translated. And it's weird because his under the hood play driving metrics are actually on the rise. He's quite a positive presence as a play driver. And he even has recently gotten a look on the first line. But the problem is, well, we saw what happened in the playoffs with the healthy scratch. Gerard Gallant just doesn't trust him enough. And I really see Valerie Nichushkin's career here. They're so similar, the development, because you have Kaapo Kakko, big-time prospect, first-round pick, just like Nichushkin. The defensive side of his game has arrived first, just like Nichushkin. And I think he needs a new team to really blossom, just like Nichushkin. And now, up until he got hurt this year, we saw Nichushkin's offense finally catching up to his defense in the right situation. And I wonder if Kakko needs to just find a new team. And, if he gets traded somewhere, he gets a fresh start, a coach that has more trust in him. But otherwise, in a keeper league, I wouldn't blame you for cutting bait because it just seems like it's taking too long for the light to switch on.
Yeah, from an NHL standpoint, we have to remember he is 21 years old, and that Finnish league season, I got to watch a lot of him play. He had it was almost a point per game, which is pretty much unheard of a draft eligible player playing in any European pro league, let alone the Finnish league, which is a very tough league to crack, where a lot of the best players are playing sometimes 2 to 3 shifts a game. So for him to go out there and put up as many points as he did, a good sign of what we were hoping he would end up being. And it didn't end up becoming the case that way. But yeah, I do agree that it's not working in New York. I think if he goes somewhere, I'm still believing in Eli Tolvanen. He's a few years older. I still think give the opportunities for Kakko to go somewhere and play somewhere. I think he'll be much better than where he's playing right now. He's too talented of a player to just kind of be relegated to nothingness. So I'm not giving up on him, but fantasy reasons, yeah, you kind of have to.
Mm-hmm.
Matthew Johnson. Is Tage Thompson truly legit? It's going to come down to having to decide between him and Jack Hughes in my pool soon due to salary cap constraints.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I think we have to say so. And if you look at, if you set aside the Ryan O'Reilly trade, before that trade happened, Tage Thompson was a first-round pick. So theoretically, the bad start to his career, that was the surprise. Him doing well was not supposed to be the surprise. That was supposed to be what he became. I don't think anyone knew he would be this good. He's evolved into this kind of unicorn man in the sense that he just has the skill set that no one else can match. It's just so there's no one to compare him to. He's 6'7". He's this giant bird of prey, just stick handling around people, and he's got speed and skill. He's got kind of everything, and teams they legitimately don't have an answer for him. They don't know how to stop him. So I think he's the real deal. I'm not saying he's going to finish top 3 in the league in scoring, but I think he's the real deal. Arrived as a star player, the star forward for the Buffalo Sabres. That said, if it's between him and Jack Hughes is also amazing. Jack Hughes is also 4 years younger. And Jack Hughes was always supposed to be a superstar, and he's becoming that before our eyes. So if you're making that call, I still absolutely would lean toward Jack Hughes because he's been, to me, just as good as Tage Thompson, and he's younger and just is more on the trajectory he was always supposed to be. He was the first overall pick. So that's your guy. I think Jack Hughes, going into last night's games, he had, I think, 89 points in his last 76 games, including last season. So he's arrived. That's who you want. That's your franchise cornerstone in a keeper league.
All right. That wraps up the questions. Last week, you gave me the starting lineup of the top 6 F1 drivers of all time. This week, I'm going to give you the challenge, and it is fitting because as Michael Buble and I were talking about there, we just saw the new trailer for the new Into the Spider-Verse movie, which I'm very excited about. People seem to say the first one was the best Spider-Man movie of all time. No Way Home exists. Let's not forget about that. But your top 6 superheroes.
Oh, Steven just won over by that recency bias. The correct answer is, in fact, Into the Spider-Verse.
No, okay. I'll say this. For the same reason that I'm not a huge fan of the digital boards. Watching the movie, I love it. But the animation style really screws up my head and gives me headaches pretty much 10 minutes into watching the movie. Mm-hmm. Now, that's more of a me issue, but I'm just not the biggest fan of that animation style. That's the downside for me.
It's one of the only movies I ever enjoyed in 3D because it was like you were almost being led through the panels of a comic book. Really cool. Okay, so top 6 superheroes. I feel really strong about my list here. It starts pretty obvious at the beginning. So I've always been a Batman person. That was always my favorite superhero, even though I'm not really a DC person. I think Batman and also one-offs like Watchmen, that's when I went over to the DC side. Just the Batman lore, the Rogues Gallery. There's so much written and said about Batman. I don't even have to really go into detail. Everyone knows why Batman is so popular. Number 2 is Spider-Man. I've always identified with Spider-Man. I love the fact that he's sort of a teenager in most iterations, or at least in college. And again, I think Batman and Spider-Man together. They have by far the best rogues galleries of villains. There's so many iconic ones, and it sounds weird to define the superhero by their villains, but I think that is part of what makes them enjoyable. Seeing Spider-Man go up against Doc Ock and Venom and Green Goblin, the list goes on. Number 3, Captain America, and I especially like the comic book iteration of him because Captain America has sort of been like an audience avatar for what's going on politically and the way they change the character and make him more paranoid after Watergate. And you saw even in the movie arc, the Winter Soldier, my favorite Marvel movie, is a throwback to 70s espionage and paranoia. So they use him as someone who can symbolize when America is disillusioned. I like the way they treat that character. Number 4 is Wolverine. I just love his attitude. He's a Canadian superhero too. I was him for Halloween once. But the adamantium skeleton and the lore around him, the ability to heal, the fact he's been alive for so long, he's just got a really cool backstory. Number 5, Daredevil. Just the idea of a blind superhero, just a really creative hook in terms of how he gets his power and being able to have heightened senses. And I like I think Daredevil Kingpin is one of the best rivalries, and the Born Again graphic novel is amazing. Really good Netflix show as well. And last, I'm going to go Jean Grey. I think she's one of the most complicated superheroes because her power is almost too great. If you look at the Dark Phoenix saga, right? She grows so powerful that she turns into a villain. And it's cool, the idea that there can be a superhero that is that strong and almost has to manage, what side they're going to land on, the dark or the light. So that's why I like Jean Grey. And I just want to throw in one dig at the most boring superhero of all time, Superman. He's just too good. He's too powerful. His villains are boring other than Lex Luthor. Snooze is how I feel about Superman.
I will add to the Daredevil talk. I've tried watching that show twice, and I finished the first season once. And then I rewatched the first season, the second half, and I know the show's so well regarded, but I just, as much as I love the Daredevil character in say animated shows and comics and stuff, I just find myself the pace to be a little too slow for me to get excited about it. I don't watch a lot of TV shows to begin with, so it's kind of has to be gripping right away, and I never felt like that show did that for me. I will finish it at some point, but I don't know. It's been 5 years since I started it, so
Yeah, and that was the problem with the Netflix superhero shows, Netflix Marvel shows, the bloat, because you had 13 episodes an hour long. It was just too much time to fit those stories in. I think 8 and 45 minutes per episode would have been totally fine. The challenge for Daredevil now that he's been reintroduced into the MCU in She-Hulk, his power set was so grounded in the Netflix show. Like, he got his ass kicked all the time. Like, he took really bad beatings, and now you have him running alongside She-Hulk, and it's like you have to power him up in a way that he didn't show in the original Netflix show. So I don't know how they're going to manage that. It'll be fun to see, though. I really do like Charlie Cox in that role. So that's it for the starting lineup, and that's it for episode 2, a jam-packed episode, Stephen. Thanks so much for doing it with me. Thank you to Michael Buble. Thank you to our sponsor, PROLINE Plus. And just a heads up, there's going to be a 2-week break until episode 3 as we take a little time off for the holidays, but we'll be back December 27th. Thanks.